Evening, everyone, and welcome to the fifth edition of Regional Prime Time, a series Reputation Today is organizing along with Fuzion PR, a one-stop solution for all communication needs of brands across regional India. This edition of Regional Prime Time will focus on communication in 2021 and beyond. A warm welcome to all our panelists, the 80 plus participants who registered on Zoom, and the 120 plus PR Club members who have been invited to this session. This session is also being live streamed on YouTube at bit.ly RT on YT. So if you're facing any issues connecting via Zoom, you may always switch to YouTube and continue attending from there, but without the option of asking questions. For those who are attending via Zoom, please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A box, and the moderator will try to pick as many as he can during the session. Please avoid using the chat box for this. Before I introduce the panelists, let me remind you that the hashtag for the session is RTPrimeTime. Please tweet using the hashtag RTPrimeTime, and don't forget to tag our partner at PR Fuzion along with Rep Today Mag. I would now like to welcome our panelists, Professor Anubhuti Yadav, Head of Department of New Media and Course Director for Advertising and PR at the Indian Institute of Mass Communication, IIMC Delhi. Deepshikha Dharmaraj, Chief Executive Officer at Genesis BCW. Dr. Samir Parikh, Director of Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at Fortis Healthcare. And Sujit Patil, Vice President and Head of Corporate Brand and Communications at the Godrej Group. And moderating the panel today is Mukesh Kharbanda, Founder and Managing Director at Fuzion PR. Over to you, Mukesh, now to set the context for this discussion.
Thank you, Anubhuti. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this discussion. This is the last of this regional primetime series that we are doing just to try and decode what future holds for us, the communication industry, specifically in the regional India. And that is why the topic for today is communication beyond 2021. And I could not have asked for a better panel to have this discussion with. Thank you, Sujit, Deepshikha, Dr. Samir, and Professor Anubhuti for taking out time to have this discussion with us. Because there is a lot to discuss, I'll quickly get to the first question that I wanted to ask. And Sujit, if I could start with your comments, please.
Sure.
There has been a lot of talk about growth, about gloom, about salary cuts, about more clients. What do you feel? Where are we? How has 2020 been for the economy, for an industry, and the learnings that we will take from 2020? How are they going to impact the future, specifically of communication industry?
It's a very long question, but I'll just try to bifurcate that into various aspects of what I see. I mean, there's no rocket science and there's no proof to be given that the economy is taken a setback. So I don't want to dwell into that and start on a negative note, but it's temporary. I'm sure it's going to bounce back very soon. Having said that, what I feel very bullish about this whole situation is, and the positive side is, this was an opportunity for all of us to actually go back to the drawing board and rehash our boilerplates, actually go back and see what actually worked for us, what actually is not working for us, decide on a strategy which is going to be relevant, it's going to be long-term and sustainable. So people who have done that have been able to relook at their own communication strategies, their measures, their metrics, the impact they want to create, as well as reskill and upskill themselves, are going to be really relevant and in a great situation, because this is a situation which is a test of time. I mean, you can't go worse than this. So maybe when the business as usual comes back, when the normalcy returns, I think we'll be in a situation where we're going to be more empathetic, we're going to be more crisper in our communication, we're going to be more authentic, our campaigns are going to be more effective because there's going to be a outlook which makes us cautious. It gives us a way to look at it in a different way. It will always make us kind of prepared for any sort of risks. The thinking about being prepared for risk is going to be higher because you had a COVID behind you. So I think I feel very bullish that going forward, it's going to be great times for the industry in terms of growth, in terms of the newer technologies which have come up, the opportunities for the PR professionals to actually operate in the space of a corporate. Why? Because corporates have also realized the importance of PR and communication. I think communications did get the due which it deserved since a long time, because if you say to alleviate the pains of all your stakeholders, be it employees or academia or maybe government or any or your consumers, I think communication was the common thread which was binding everyone, keeping them positive. So I think that realization is there. So when we get into the other side, I think we'll be welcomed with open arms. The opportunity for us to deal with the great situation would be even more higher. The newer ways of communications would be there to welcome us. And I think people who have upskilled themselves would be really relevant. People who have not, I think I'm sorry for them. But then the thing is, it has opened up new plethora of ways to look at the way we used to do communications. And I think it's going to be really positive.
Thanks for the initial remarks, Sujit. I think it is great to start on a positive note, especially in a year when we completed a decade and I moved to Deepshikha, where Genesis has completed 28 years. Congratulations, Deepshikha.
Thank you, Mukesh.
A similar view of growth and not gloom, like Sujit mentioned, even for the creative agencies. And I would take your view on PR, digital, and all the other aspects of communication also.
Yeah, actually, completely agree with Sujit. And as an industry, I think we are very positive going forward. A lot of us, I think most of us believe the worst is behind us. I think the worst phase was the April to July phase, which was the most difficult one. And I have to say, it's been fantastic to see how colleagues as well as fellow industry people have stood up in that difficult time. And what has held true for us is sheer resilience. I mean, over the last 6-7 months, that's the one word that keeps coming back to me, is the resilience with which we have stood ground, and also the pace with which we have made changes. And that brings me to the second point of agility, which has kept us going. I don't think any one of us have rested at all. Each day was a new day of crisis, not for one or two clients, but almost all our clients. And I don't think we've ever been in that kind of situation, right? Those in the agency side know what I'm talking about. You normally have crisis in one or two clients in a week, but here you had probably all your clients in a crisis situation, and therefore we were really running very hard. And on top of all that, we had our own personal challenges. I mean, not being at the workplace, work from home, being scared and actually worried about what this pandemic was going to bring to us, even personally. So that was the gloom, which is, I think, definitely behind us. So to your point, Mukesh, and what Sujit has talked about, going forward, there is a lot of positiveness and a very strong future of possibilities. A lot of people have already talked about this, that very often pandemics and crises like this actually bring out a whole new set of possibilities. It's just how you look at them. And if I start looking at the opportunities that's opened up for the communications world, it's simply fantastic. There are a whole lot of new truths that we are getting used to. This whole work from home and work from anywhere and being agile and being available at all times. We've now figured out how to do that. That's the good news. We are not tied down to our desks, definitely. The second one, which we've opened up a whole new set of opportunities, is digital. And everybody's been talking about digital transformation, much bandied about word. I understand and I get it. But in a nutshell, we were kind of moving towards digital in some way and manner across different businesses and firms. And we were experimenting with one thing in 6 months or one thing in the next 6 months. What this pandemic did is forced us to accelerate that whole digital process. There was no time to wait. I mean, the kind of innovation that we saw in the first 3 months is probably what people do in 3 years. I mean, look at our industry itself. I mean, we went straight from not being able to do any events to online events led by AR, VR, virtual sessions. Everything was aligned somehow. I mean, and there was a lot of hard work behind it, but we all managed to do it, and we all went virtual. So it's a big space of opportunity and possibilities for us, and that's how we see it as an industry overall. That's how we see it at Genesis, and I think a lot of my colleagues are on the same page of 2021 is going to be a year of building back and growth of new possibilities.
That's great, Deepshikha. Good to hear. So it is 2 for growth, 0 till now for gloom. I move to Professor Anubhuti. Professor Anubhuti, do you see the same sentiments when it comes to creating a new curriculum? Because now we need a lot of new skills for people to survive in the industry. Like Deepshikha mentioned, it's taken us probably 3 months to take the leap, which we would have taken in 3 years. How has it been with the education sector, especially at IIMC?
Yeah, absolutely. And what Sujit said and what Deepshikha said, I mean, this applies to education also. During this pandemic, we have seen that, education, both school education and higher education, they were impacted the most, in the sense that what educational technologists have been forecasting for quite some time that will move on to online education. This is something which we are witnessing right now. But the only thing is that, we've been forced towards this. The teachers were not ready for that. Students were not ready for that. But at the end of it, when we see like how everything is happening right now, online, classes, I think we are moving, we've done it in a very nice way. And as far as the course curriculum is concerned, definitely, like, we need to repackage our curriculum. This is the lesson which we have learned during pandemic. Most of the time, what happened that, in the institute like IMC or like Symbiosis, most of the practicals happen at the end of the year. And this is what we witnessed. Our students were ready for the practical, and this pandemic happened, and then they have to go home. And we had to conclude our course, very abruptly. So this is what we have to keep in mind. I think, this is something which we have already done, that now we need to reorganize our curriculum. We need to integrate the projects. We need to integrate research studies. We need to integrate campaign planning from the first semester onwards, rather than waiting it, till the end of the semester or till the end of, their academic year. So definitely it will have a huge impact on curriculum development and curriculum planning. Also, say for example, we had one full module on event management, and now we need to redo the entire thing, because the way events are happening, conferences, webinars, so we have to teach our students how to conduct those webinars, how to conduct those conferences. But there's a huge challenge in front of us as an educator, because being in PR industry, it might be easy because, yes, everyone is there in, urban setting where internet connection is there. But, we as an educator, we have to face this challenge that, we have to cater to students who are coming from urban areas. We also have to cater to students who are coming from rural areas, and there is a digital divide. So not only internet, we have to find out different ways, how we can not only repackage a curriculum, but how we have to deliver the content to our students. And this is something which IMC is doing, right now. So instead of having, different papers, which we used to have earlier, now we are having short modules in that. And definitely, like, the biggest lesson during this pandemic is that, we can rope in a lot of industry people in this. And this is like the opportunity which I see right now. Initially, like, we were dependent on, the experts who were there in Delhi. But I know that now, if in case I have to invite someone from Mumbai or Bangalore or Dubai or wherever, the experts can come and interact with our students. So yes, there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of opportunities. All the educational institutes, they're really working hard on repackaging the curriculum. And of course, the biggest challenge lies in the delivery of that particular content. And that is something which we have to see, because at IMC, we haven't started the course yet. So that is the challenge, which lies in front of us.
Sure, Professor. I see a lot of still a new wave of opportunities also, even for the education sector. Uh, I moved to Dr. Samir now, and I was personally dreading this conversation. But Dr. Samir, how do you see, is 2020 the trigger, or was the mental health already round the corner and 2020 has just brought it to the surface? Second question, when you answer this, when does a person get to know that I need professional help? But what is the trigger when I realize that there is a mental health problem for which I need professional guidance? And why is it more so with people or professions which are 24/7 demanding, like communications? Over to you.
So a couple of aspects. I think the pandemic has brought in the mental health component more out there, primarily because almost everybody has been impacted, be it in terms of our behavioral change. Working from home is a huge behavioral change. Be it in terms of our social engagement, which has gone through a remarkable change, our emotional self, our well-being. And if you look at the pandemic, probably there are only two aspects to it. The physical aspect, which we keep talking about, but the undercurrents of the mental aspect which need to be understood. So whether even a small thing like why don't some people wear the mask has a psychosocial component to it.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to go to a place which you can avoid only because you feel that you need to probably, apart from other things, probably click a selfie and say that you've revisited that place? Is also a psychosocial component. But let's understand this very, very clearly. Pandemic or no pandemic, 1 in 5 people in the world suffer from a mental health ailment. Let's also understand the single largest illness in the world is depression. 300 million people globally suffer from it. Right? And this was, and WHO's had talked about let's talk depression 2.5, 3 years back. Right? So it's not that it's suddenly creeping in. That's not true. So we must understand this aspect that yes, but we also need to split this mental ailments and mental health concerns. When a drastic, unprecedented, completely unprepared that we were, an unprecedented crisis happens and happens across the board, across the world, everybody gets affected. The tsunami comes, everybody gets affected. And gradually people start coming to terms, like you mentioned that, you had 3 bad months and then you have opportunities like what happened in education sector. I come from the health sector, right? We know what we are going through. I think it's remarkable the way frontline healthcare workers, my colleagues in ENT and pulmonology, internists and ICU colleagues, it's remarkable for doing what they are doing. So that, but everybody goes through the mental health challenges as well. So one needs to look at these as 2 different aspects. And it's also important to see that, when we talk about experts and when to go to experts, I'm a very firm believer that expertization of mental health is not the solution for us. We have a huge percentage, and over 500% shortage of experts in our country. In my lifetime, the WHO ratio is never going to be achieved.
Yeah.
Of population is to experts. Let's be very clear about it. Right? If you add all the counselors who are trained and all the schools that are registered, you will probably have more schools than counselors. Then how can you have a counselor for every school? The math doesn't work. So what needs to happen is that we need to first look at the basic level of intervention. And the most basic intervention is prevention. You focus on skills, you focus on prevention, early identification, support systems, which is friends, your GP level, and then finally the expert level. And yes, the specifics, how do I know I need help? Change in behavior, change in my social engagement, feeling not so good about myself, which is the emotion or the self, affect into my lifestyle, sleep, appetite, etc. My work, academics, concentration, performance, etc. Any of these things getting impacted and the quality of my life having functional impairment, I should seek help.
Understood, Dr. Samir. Thank you for these inputs. Deepshikha, though Sujit and you were pro-growth, but there has been some gloom or concern from Professor Anubhuti and Dr. Samir. Specifically on the mental health thing and what Dr. Samir mentioned, it seems like every other client call.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
On a serious note, what are the measures you are taking and how do you see our industry specifically dealing with the mental health perspective?
Yeah, no, and while Dr. Samir was speaking, it is very true that the first point is identification of, I won't call it a mental illness, but let's even just start with a mental situation or a concern or an incident that does happen. And so this is where organizations come in very, very strongly. And I think the one big thing we learned, Mukesh, and I'm sure it's relevant for everybody, is empathy and listening. We actually spent a lot of time listening to our people, our employees, not just within the agency, but this is exactly what we advise to our clients also. Your employees are most important. Listen to them first. What do they want from the organization? What do they need? What the kind of situations they're going through? Dr. Parikh talked about the loss of human connect. It was a big, big blow to most of us. I think all of us. I mean, suddenly being in a workplace where you could talk to each other, connect with each other, ask somebody questions, get some inputs, just, be there for each other. That wasn't the case anymore. There were people who were alone at home, who were living alone. They couldn't go back to their families, even if they wanted to, and they were terrified in the lockdown and didn't know how to manage themselves. And this is when we realized that we need to spend an additional amount of time listening to our people, one, and two, dealing with them in a more empathetic manner. So we put in place a whole lot of a mental wellness support system, I can call it. So, I mean, first it just initially literally started with each one of the leaders being available, calling up every person in the team and saying, are you doing okay? Do you need any help? And so on. And then we realized, look, we can't deal with everything ourselves. Then we brought in professional help. We brought on a call service where you could actually call in and talk to them about whatever you were going through. And it was a professional on the other side who could help you and support you. And we were fortunate in Genesis, while we were doing this ourselves, we also have the larger WPP support system. And WPP brought in a whole lot of additional resources to help people address some of these mental situations and issues that they were going through. So I think that's step one of how do we identify and then how do we deal with it in the most empathetic manner. And the second part was we as communicators also have a huge role to play in bringing this conversation out into the open. And I have to say the industry, PRCI, did a lot of work together. They did a lot of surveys to ask people how they were feeling. They also had this whole, you can talk to a friend line system. So there was a lot of support system that came in, one. Two, bring the conversation out in the open. It shouldn't be a taboo. If you're not feeling mentally, if you're not well mentally, don't feel shy talking about it. Let's talk about it, because then you can get a solution. But if you bottle it up, and we know that, and Dr. Samir is going to tell us that if you keep bottling it up, it's going to explode and blow up in the worst way possible. So we as communicators must encourage more conversation about this and get our clients to talk about bringing forth some of these issues. Today, purpose and bringing purpose to fore, and this could be one of the areas that you want to spend time on, of how do we deal with mental illness. All this will add more to this conversation and help people understand mental illness much better and deal with it.
Sure. Thanks, Deepshikha. Sujit, whenever I've got the opportunity to meet you, there is a huge positive smile on your face. What is the role of leaders in these testing times for your team, for your extended agency partners, and even the vendors that you deal with? Sorry, you are on mute, Sujit. Yeah.
All right. Is it audible?
Yeah.
So I kind of completely agree with Deepshikha. I think what is more important is to recognize the thing that this is possible, and more so during these COVID times. So for me, it's like being one single mantra. I mean, communicate, and communicate more. So I think the level of communications within our team itself, and if some of my team members are listening into that, they'll certainly agree with that. Our level of communication has gone up within our own teams. Each one is available for the other for anything at any given point of time. The same holds true for our agency partners, consultancy partners, the creative partners, everyone who are more 75 to 80 people who work on the Godrej corporate brand and PR initiatives. I think we have a regular calendar where we meet very regularly. Within my team, I meet them every day. So we all of us are together every day from 2:30 to 3:30, which is a daily call. If anyone can't, they just drop out. But otherwise, it's there. Everyone is there. 15 minutes out of that call is generally about well-being. It's all about how's things, what are the other stuff that they're doing. More from the reviews angle, it's more lightened up. I think the productivity has gone up because of that. I think giving an opportunity to express yourself, being there for your team, being there for your partners, that's fundamental. And I think this is one of the lessons which we've learned during this time. I mean, when business is as usual, we can just do this again. And just imagine the kind of chemistry which it can lead to. I mean, the partnerships, the empathy, the understanding between each other might just significantly go up. So I think as a leadership trait, I think being there for your team is absolutely important. I think that I give the most important priority. In fact, within Godrej Group itself, more than town halls, it is a given that individual functional leaders are in touch with their individual teams. So I think you don't need to then have a town hall where maybe the chairperson or a head of the organization comes and addresses. There's continuous addresses happening. Putting people at rest, giving them the solace if there are any concerns. We have a doctor on call. We have, all those cliche things which everyone is doing is all in place. But I think what is more important for all of us as leaders is to be there, unconditionally during these times, and keep the conversation on. That trust and empathy, and most importantly, the trust amongst each other to share that I'm going through something which can lead to depression is absolutely important. So I think one of the other leadership enhancements during these times is to enhance your ability to inculcate that trust, that I can go without being judged to my boss or to my colleague and speak up. And if you create that ambience, I think Dr. Samir would agree that half of the problems would be solved.
Sure, Sujit. There are already a lot of 10 plus questions, and I don't think I'll be able to take all of them, but I'll try my best. Sujit, there is a question here which I will club with what Professor Anubhuti said. It is about what are the skills that professionals need now. So when you hire somebody, what are the skills that you will look for in that person in 2021 now?
I think there are four key important aspects that I look at when I hire or see in my team. One has to be authenticity. As communication professionals, we have to be authentic. We can't be doing vulturistic PR or doing something which is cause washing or something like that. Second most important thing is empathy. Empathy in terms of we are dealing with almost all sorts of stakeholders. I mean, you don't know what they're going through. So that empathy factor, putting yourself into the other person's shoes and thinking from that angle, from a consumer angle, based on insights or whatever, is the second important trait. The third most important thing as communicators going forward is going to be collaboration, interdependencies and collaboration. And the world is changing. It's not only limited to PR or traditional PR or something like that. The silos are broken. So the more interdependent you are as a professional with HR, with marketing, with brand teams, with finance, how do you work together with them to create a complete campaign which is more effective? So I think interdependency and collaboration is the most important part of these four aspects which I feel are important. And the fourth one is, I think it's a non-negotiable. I think what certain people do lack, and it can be developed, is the right attitude. I think that attitude has to be there, that killer instinct that, okay, to spread that positivity, to connect with people. That I don't mean that you need to be an extrovert for that, but have the right attitude. I think attitude for PR people is a must. I think these are the four things which are absolutely necessary. And if you're undernourished in any of these traits, and it will reflect in your work sooner or later, it will certainly come up either when you're doing conversations with the media or within your own teams or giving briefs or taking briefs. Unless these four powerful attributes are honed, are polished, are worked upon, and are taken to the next level, uh, I don't think you'll be relevant.
Sure, Sujit. Thanks. Deepshikha, if you could point out just one thing that you look for in people or now you would look for in people while hiring them in 2021.
Okay, one thing is very hard. All of what Sujit talked about, but I would add one definitely to it is digital capabilities. That is going to be critical now. If the young students or those coming into the profession don't know how to deal with the digital workspace, they better upskill themselves really fast, because that is the reality of our communication business today. And if I can add, the second one is creativity, ability to think out of the box, because you can have everything else, but if you want to be a fantastic professional and really help your clients, or it's about solving a problem, right? And creativity has to be there and inculcated within the learning system for them to be able to help solve problems. So yeah, I would add definitely these two. So all of what Sujit said, four of those plus these. So yes, we need supermen and superwomen coming in into the profession. Definitely.
Let me move to the person who's creating these super people. Professor Anubhuti, do you see these qualities in people? Do you think people who have these qualities get imbibed by agencies and corporates better? They get a better package, get imbibed quicker, excel in their career, because you've been dealing with students for years now.
Absolutely. And what Deepshikha said, I think, this is the most important, in the sense that, nowadays digital skills is, must. And the only issue is, every time, when we interact with the industry people, we get this input that, okay, the students, they require digital skills. But somewhere we have to break it down, what kind of digital skills, right? For example, we have introduced a number of things. Students should be in a position to make good infographics. They should be in a position to make, explainer videos. So, they should be in a position to work with data. So these are certain things which has already been, included in the curriculum. But somewhere I feel that, the industry and the academia, they need to collaborate. For example, if this is the input that the digital skills should be there, then, what sort of digital skills are required? It has to be very, very specific. I mean, it's not that, you're sitting in front of, computer, and if you're able to work there, that's okay, fine. There are a number of students who will be able to do that. But what specific are expected from, the students who will be applying for a job in Genesis or, any other agency? I think this is something which we need to look at. And coming back to your question, definitely those the students who have, these skills, they are the one, they are hired by these agencies. But this year, the problem which we faced, and which I really want to share with, the two experts from the industry, when this pandemic started, that was the time, most of the hiring, happens. And this time, frankly speaking, half of our batch, especially like advertising and public relations, because I'm handling that particular batch, only half of the batch is placed, and, rest half, they're still without jobs. So we were talking about, emotional intelligence, Dr. Parikh talked about that. So it's not for the individuals only, like organizations also need to be, emotionally intelligent, in the sense that, everybody knew that, okay, there are a group of students who were working in the field or learning, art and craft of advertising and public relations for last 2 years. So somewhere, that thing should have been there in the agencies, that at least, some jobs should be given to them, and this was not there. So students kept applying, and this is something which they've got, that, no jobs, and we don't have any vacancies. So this is something which we actually need to look at, and this is, the problem which we faced this year. Another very important thing which happens is, because, I'm talking about, mental health, and I'm talking about, the emotional intelligence. Many a times, students, when they join agencies, they join as an interns. and they're bright students, they do good work. But this whole concept of unpaid internship is something which is worrying all of us, in academics and the students also. And this is also we need to look at, say for example, in the time like pandemic, when the students have spent 2 years learning a one particular thing, and when they reach that stage, when they feel that they are ready for a job, and when they apply and they get something, and then they are told that it's not going to be a paid for. So these are the things which we need to I think as an industry we need to look at.
No,
If I may
absolutely.
add something to that, Mukesh, with your permission.
Please, Sujit, please.
Yeah, so Professor Anubhuti, I mean, I'll take your email ID from maybe Anubhuti, Mathur, and maybe I'll send you a competency framework that we've created in terms of, I go to a few of the colleges as a visiting faculty, and over the last 4-5 years, we've seen that the kind of syllabus that they have been having is absolutely Baba Adam ke zamane ka. It's like the 70s ka case studies and 80s ka case study. The students who come out also are actually, going through stuff which is absolutely irrelevant. I can't say completely irrelevant, but then there are better things for them to learn in this age when this new crop is coming up. I mean, I believe that they don't need digital skills. They're digital natives. They know exactly what, I mean, interns who join our function to work, I mean, they have taught me how to use Instagram. My team has taught me. I mean, I am a fossil in that case. But still, I know today that, these are guys who've not gone to any university to learn about Instagram and what ticks on an Instagram or what works on digital, what is influencer engagement. It's there for them because they're digital natives. What is more important for them to learn is about the orientation, about the business, what they can do, and inculcate a sense of pride amongst them that what they're doing is amazing. I know one of the observations which I have is, in a large communication school where they have choices to make after the second semester in terms of choosing their streams. There are no takers for PR. It's a surprise because it's not been promoted. The PR for PR bit is lacking there. You don't have any right stuff happening. I mean, it's just a long story which I can tell, but the thing is, it's onus on the industry as well as professors like you to actually have that bond with the industry, inculcate newer case study based mechanisms. There are n number of case studies. I mean, even at Godrej, I can give you hundreds of them. I'm sure Deepshikha, with her enormous client base, she can supply you those. I think the need is to change the whole pedagogy, maybe the teaching process, the whole inculcation, the honor. I think SCORE is doing a wonderful job in that aspect. I think that is what is required, because once you get into the job and you will talk about some Tylenol case study of 1970s and 80s and don't know anything about what's happening currently, then that's where the disconnect happens. So I'm happy to engage with you separately and maybe share with you that whole competency mapping that we've.
That's absolutely right, and I'm sure there are a number of our students who are watching this particular program, and this is the kind of collaboration which we want with the industry. One, in the area of curriculum development, right? As you have said that, okay, it's not relevant. So yes, we would require the input of industry experts. Second, in the area of research, say for example, if I have around 80 students, you have human resource available there. If in case in your agency you have any requirement of research, that resource is available for you. For us, it will be a learning experience. For you, I mean, you'll get extra hand. And a third is maybe during campaign planning and all. Say, for example, Deepshikha mentioned that creativity is something which is very important, right? So if you have 80 students, bright young people sitting there in the class, I think that there will be a lot of creative ideas coming from their side. So that's the kind of collaboration which we want from the industry.
Absolutely. And if I can jump in here, Anubhuti and Sujit, you're very right. And we do work with a lot of institutes. I'm not going to take all their names here, but there are, I mean, SCORE is definitely one of them, and there are quite a few others who have invested time along with the industry in completely revamping their curriculum, bringing in very relevant today's conversations in their program. And actually, they're more assignment based than theory based. I mean, the particular program that I teach, there is no theory, there are no books, there are nothing. Everything is assignment based, case studies based, assignment based, real experiential based. And I think that's the kind of education which is going to make the biggest difference. And if you go down further, even when you look at the younger students, they're all in experience based education. So we'll be very happy to work with you, Dr. Anubhuti, to look at how we can help do more of that with the education industry.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Deepshikha. I think something positive out of this. But Professor Anubhuti, if I could say this on behalf of agencies, I think this year has been a little difficult, especially the period when we hire. So I think the entire focus was to guard the jobs that we have, to guard the salaries that we were paying so that we don't have to announce any pay cuts just because to hire new people. So yes, there has been a challenge. We should have been a little more compassionate towards new people. We could have been, we were not, but point well taken. And I think all of us here and all of us listening would pay heed to this. Thank you for pointing this out. Dr. Samir, this brings me to you, and there are a lot of questions for you specifically. Because we talked about digital and everybody is saying digital is the criteria for future. I remember when we were having this chat yesterday, you said because we are on digital platforms 24/7, it also results in increasing anxiety and mental health issues. But at the same time, we end up using these platforms only to create awareness about mental health also. So over to you, sir. Please take your time and enlighten us on what is the right way to deal with digital media.
Lots of things. Before I come to that, there's just, while I was listening to all four of you, this just kept to my mind. I don't think education brings a sense of entitlement. That because I have got an education, I should get a job. That's not living in the real world, right? I don't think we define how we want to work and what we want to work and how we can do what. I think that's also a skill for life, right? All of us have been young at one time. I was young very, very, very long time back. So Sujit, if you are a fossil, then I'm a fossil multiplied by a lot more of carbon footprint that you can imagine. But I think it's a skill of life. I mean, let's accept it. COVID is an unprecedented training as well. And it's not about one industry or the other. I mean, yes, unemployment for young people and not getting jobs for young people or people losing jobs is also a reality. There's no point being an ostrich to the reality. But the fact is you learn from it. What do you learn? You find your support systems. You understand your self-belief. You realize that your education hasn't been taken away from you. Your capabilities, your expertise, your attitude has not been taken away from you. It's just that we are in a time zone where certain things may not work. So you pass through this time zone with the same self, so that on the other side of the time zone, you will be able to flourish, and that's life. Today it is COVID, tomorrow it could be something totally unprecedented and different. It could be a personal, group, collective, societal, economic, cultural, geographic, natural, any form of problem can happen in life. That's life. So one of the skills of life is to deal with that fact as well. So besides that, now, so my take on digital world is, and Sujit, I completely identify with what you said. I still don't have an Instagram account, right? And as a joke, I always say that I don't have an Instagram account because I do have a life. And I really can't find the narcissism in me to make my own pictures and put a grid of my own pictures. It shames narcissists. Poor fellow just saw his own image and jumped.
Do it for my brands, no worries. Don't do it for yourself.
So understand this. What is the challenge? And you're quite right. The young are very well digital natives. We have to accept it. We have to accept that a school-going kid, a 13, 14-year-old, has a digital persona, a digital self. Whether we like it or not, that's a reality. So to schools, I tell them, teach media literacy, because children are growing up in an environment where their smartphone has become an extension of their body, almost like their body. Yeah. They are less likely to forget their phone, more likely to skip an exam or forget an exam, or carry a pen for their exam. That's how the extension of the body has become with the smartphone. And I've always been saying that probably we call it smart because it's smarter than who we are. That's what it is. So we need to understand that you give media literacy to young people. There's no point telling them don't use this, don't use that. Nobody is going to listen to you. I don't even think all these, if you are 18, don't click on this kind of things actually works with young people. Their intelligence is so much more than us, right? In any case, we are not very smart people. We show adult programs at 11 p.m. and which is the time when only adolescents are awake because all adults who are working going are asleep, right? And we show things that you would, with all the spiritual kind of stuff, you go at 6 a.m. and there is no kid awake at that time. So in any case, we don't quite understand biology very well when we devise our own mechanisms. But having said that, there are pros and cons. We will need to bring media literacy so that young people's minds are not negatively impacted, because that's a real threat. The real threat is that when today we talk about how our support systems have been the differentiator, all these examples given by these individuals is about how a leader became a support system, how a peer became a support system. That support system came out of meaning, real relationships, not based on followers, not based on likes and views. That component of life also needs to be understood. Yes, the digital medium can be very useful. I mean, we've seen that ourselves. I mean, we've engaged school-going children on mental health awareness campaigns, and the kind of creativity, the passion that they brought into it, into mental health awareness, was remarkable. So much for us to learn. I mean, I didn't know. I still don't know. I still don't know how to repost, by the way, right? So, in fact, sometimes when I try to do something and our account gets locked on, and my young team calls me up and says that, can you just stop doing something there? Because we realize you're the only person who would make this mess. Both sides of it, but we need to help young people understand authenticity of the self happens when there is only one self. You can't have a digital persona and your self persona have two different personas. You can't do one thing at one place and another thing in another place. If you want to lead an effective life in a digital world, and it will be a digital world as we grow, you need to become more real. And your real self can be only one self. And that real self needs to be the portrait self. That real self needs to be the digital self. These can't be different selves. You will get confused yourself. If they'll be digital, you'll have different personas. And I think that's the key of working with young people. I think education institutes should bring in media literacy and mental health curriculums into that training. But we need to prepare young minds to become resilient and develop skills for life.
Sure, Dr. Samir. Thank you
Very
so
profound.
much. Before I move to my last segment, allow me to please take one question for each of the panelists. I'll start with you, Deepshikha. There is a question from Gurkirat Singh. He asks, due to the increase in online demand, do you see regional portals being of major importance in 2021 and about? This is to do with regional language portals he's talking about.
Okay, so are you talking about regional language news and information portals?
Absolutely.
Oh, apps. I mean, 100%. I don't think it was just the pandemic which would make them more relevant. Even before that, and yes, definitely after the pandemic, the need for brands and corporates to reach out to what we call the rest of India, right? Over and above the English-speaking metro India, is huge today, more so than ever before. So regional portals will have a very strong role to play. It's about how do they actually make those connects with the brands, and how do they take the message out? How do they invest in their content to make it more relevant? I think that's going to be the key for regional portals.
Well, thanks, Deepshikha. Sujit, a question for you is from Stuti Sharma. She asks about how important is the regional PR aspect in your overall strategy? How has been the transition in the past 5 years, and how do you see it happening in the next 5?
So very apt and brilliant question. So I think I'll just give you a background why it is very important for us. So just to give you some numbers, I think we touch about, as Godrej Group, we touch about 750 million consumers in our country and 1.2 billion across the world, which is by far the highest in any corporate. It's just second to China Mobile because of the sheer population that they have. So if I say I touch 750 million consumers in India, just in India, they're not sitting in Bombay or Delhi or Bangalore. A significant part of them are sitting in regions, in the far-fetched region, because products like hair dye, good night, or rest of them, between soaps and aerospace, everything in between, it's consumed across in the regional media. So the relevance is tremendous. I think 6-7 years back, we realized that we were focusing only on Economic Times or maybe, the Business Standards of the world or Times of India, because those were really sexy papers, and English reading. That was one phase. Not that that is not important. That's absolutely important for our stakeholders, which is the stock and investors and stuff, and plus the urban SEC, A, B, C, those higher level categories. It's very important. But we realized that we were not communicating with the regional. So 4 years back, we actually devised a proactive strategy to reach out to them. Today, in my share of voice, every month within our team, the target is how much is the increase in the regional media coverage, the regional media engagement. It's a very focused approach, and the analytics it used to come from Icona, now from Concept BIU. But every month on month, based on the regional outcomes, all the parameters which are qualitative in nature, we track them rigorously, and every month there is an increase. So today, if you say from 6-7 years back, when 95% of our share of voice was in urban and English newspapers, today the regional has gone to about 25 to 30%, which has to further increase. We're still not happy with it, because as the basic bottom line is 750 million consumers are there, and they're not in Bombay. So that answers your question. Basically, it's absolutely necessary for us. And going forward, the impetus is going to be even more higher. In fact, we're looking at developing new communication modes through which we can communicate in the regional languages, in the vernacular languages. English is not the de facto language. So today, if you see even our corporate films, we're trying to dub them in Hindi, Bangla, based on the theme of the film. So I think the impetus is going to go higher, and going forward, yes, regional media is very important for us. And secondly, regional language communications emanating from Godrej is going to see a much more significant traction and more frequency.
That's great to hear, Sujit, and thank you for giving us concrete figures and percentages. Professor Anubhuti, do you pay emphasis on regional languages, the knowledge of regional media, or how media functions beyond the major 6 metros when you teach your students at IIMC?
Absolutely. And in fact, I want to share with you that at IMC, we do have language journalism courses. For example, we have a course in Marathi journalism. We have a course in Odia journalism. So I think this is the first institute wherein we have, a lot of courses in language journalism. Now, coming on to advertising and public relations, definitely we introduce our students to, language press, because as Sujit mentioned that, there's a lot of scope there. We in India, we're talking about, 70,000 newspapers plus newspapers. So, I mean, it's not only top 5 or 6 English reading newspapers, they have to create content for the regional press also. They have to create content for the regional news channels also. So we do emphasize on that. And this is something, which is, important part of our curriculum. And we are planning to start, more courses in, language journalism soon at IMC.
Sure. Dr. Samir, a question for you. I don't know if it makes sense or not. But is it important for communication professionals to understand the psychology of a customer also? Where he lives, how he has been brought up? Because if I need to sell a product to myself or to Sujit or Deepshikha, I might kind of content, but we keep serving the same kind of content to an entire geography of people. Do you see any relevance here?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that. You have 2 experts of the industry sitting here, but of course, how can you have one message for everybody? How is that ever possible? I'll let these 2 industry experts answer this. But Sujit, I have one thing for you. You have 750 million people, right? Just do mental health a favor, yeah. One mental health message once a month to your 750 million people. Any one mental health message, and that will drive change. So keeping all these conversations aside, one message by Godrej to its consumers can actually bring a remarkable change in the narrative of mental health. I'd like them answer this question. I think this is for them.
That was a purpose-led creativity pitch by Dr. Samir, instantly for you, Sujit.
Yes, I think it's a good pick. I think some of our brands
Nice.
pick it up, and we'll engage separately, Dr. Samir. We can do something on that. To answer this question,
But
if I can take it in terms of messaging, I think it's not only that messaging which has to be different as per the segments. I think we want 2 steps ahead in terms of our strategy, which 2 years back when we came together and said, okay, what's going to be the kind of lay of the land in terms of brand PR and the products which go in different parts of a state, for example. So I'll love to add what our CEO for consumer products, Sunil, had spoken about. He coined a term called CIM, which is conquering, markets which are discrete. Within, like, say for example, let me articulate it. If it's like, say, state of UP, even in a state of UP, you have different districts. Each district has different villages. The demography and the psychography of the consumer changes there also at different levels. The Hindi Boli changes every 15 kilometers or 15 miles. This is what I'd read somewhere. Just imagine if you want to engage with those people at different levels, your communication has to be, so your core communication message has to be uniform, but the mode in which you propagate that message could be different. Some people consume their data, so based on their consumption of data, the communication happens. So I fully agree, it has to be segmented. It's called conquering micro markets. So we divide a larger set of market into micro markets based on their demography, and based on that we communicate. So press conference might happen similar way. The message would be same, but one area it could be a little different message would be same, the different treatment to the message. Somewhere else it will be based on the cultural nuances of that place. And it's absolutely important going forward. Digital and social media actually enables that, and that's going to be another large stream of communication which is going to emerge, is what I feel. Reaching out to the consumer where the consumer wants to consume your data based on his or her choices, based on his or her cultural background, needs. It's going to be very interesting.
Got it, Sujit. I'm sorry, we are running out of time. It's only 3-4 minutes, but and I already have a message from Anubhuti, but I will still go ahead with my last section. We talked about the future ready skills, the impact of 2020 and the future, what future holds for our industry. But I want to end it with the human elements. If you could, all of you could just give us one human element which will help us be better professionals and better humans to take on whatever pandemic comes in the next decade. Anybody who would want to start? Shall we start with Dr. Samir? That's your core competency.
Empathy, altruism, and connectivity. 3 things. We need to have meaningful relationship, which is connectivity. Empathy, not for just to use the word, empathy in the true sense. And not empathy coming from higher up somewhere and some organizations and some NGOs and the government's doing it. Empathy comes with a sense of responsibility. And frankly, altruism. The society needs socially responsible, altruistic individuals. I think the whole time frame of egocentrism and self first, I hope that time has gone. And I hope that the pandemic has brought humility into our narcissism, which will bring out altruism on the other side of COVID.
Sure, thank you. Professor Anubhuti, your views, please.
Well, I think emotional intelligence, we've been giving a lot of importance to academic abilities, intellectual abilities. Somewhere we have to move towards emotional intelligence skills. It's not like how many degrees you have, but how you handle yourself, how you handle others. That is something which is very important. Another is initiative, adaptability, because this is something which we have seen during this pandemic, how adaptable you are to new situations. That's very important.
Deepshikha, I know
I have one which stands out, and Dr. Samir has already talked about it, but I will repeat it again. Empathy, empathy, empathy. I think if we get that right, we will become much better as people. We will become better professionals. We will be better leaders, and we will be better communicators. So there's that one thing which will actually string it all together and hopefully make this a better world for us going forward in the future.
Okay, I come to you, Sujit. Happened so we started with you and we are ending the discussion with your comments. And I come to you when everybody has taken a lot of words. So I don't know what are you going to say. I'm very interested to know.
I have just one word. I mean, it has to be the right attitude. That's it. Nothing else matters. I mean, everything flows through. If you have the right attitude, you will be empathetic, you will be altruistic, you will be non-narcissist. Narcissism is good, by the way. It's not a bad thing. Dr. Samir would agree with, leadership trait. Narcissism is important. It has to be limited, but not,
Legitimate
narcissism. I mean,
legitimate and realistic.
It's a feel-good thing for people. I mean, it leads to a lot of innovations. That's what my firm belief is. It leads to collaboration. It leads to interdependency. So lots of stuff. But everything sums up together if you have the right attitude. I think PR industry needs that killer attitude, and I think if that comes in, we'll be there.
Thanks, Sujit, for ending this on a positive note. So I feel right attitude, optimism, empathy, and emotional intelligence is what you all said. And great 4 words to end the discussion with. Thank you so much for taking out this 1 hour to have this discussion. It was very fruitful. I thoroughly enjoyed. Allow me to please welcome back Anubhuti Mathur.
For this fabulous discussion. Several takeaways from this session today. I'd like to thank our panelists, Professor Anubhuti, Deepshikha, Dr. Samir, and Sujit for their time and insights today. Thank you to all our attendees for taking the time out this evening. In case you wish to revisit the session or share it with friends and colleagues, a recording of the same will be available on our YouTube channel, bit.ly RT on YT. A big thank you to OneSource, who have helped us reach the community for each of our online events. After having done almost 4 online events every month since 15th March, we are now focusing our energies on Spectra, which is a unique online reputation management conference. With over 20 global speakers and over 40 Indian speakers, this is an unmissable conference for any reputation management professional. For details around Spectra, please visit www.spectraonline.in. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram at RepTodayMag for more updates. We hope to see you all at Spectra. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.